Okay, I thought I'd give a quick little video demo of how I get my Tesla range displayed on my watch. So here's my watch, and here's sort of like a simulation in the Watchmaker app on the phone. It's a bit bigger and probably easier to read than reading the watch face. But here you can see the range, 315 kilometers, and that's real time, worst case 15 minutes delayed, and I thought I'd explain how I get that number onto my watch. And so you can see here, this is my watch in its sleep state, so it's an always on screen. So you can see the range is always displayed. But when it wakes up, you get these extras. You can see this white ring and then this sort of coloured ring on the very outside. So that actual coloured ring on the outside is also the range of my Tesla. And basically for every degree of this ring, that equates to 1 kilometre of range. So that would be 315 degrees in that segment. And the way I kind of do that is it's actually done as an animation. So when the watch is asleep, it looks like that, and when you do the tilt to wake up, animation kicks in, and you'll see it does a funky animation, and then the outer range gets displayed there, or the outer ring, sorry, displays the range there, which I can kind of demo on my watch, although I'm not sure if it'll be that viewable. Yeah, not going to look that good on yellow, but yeah, basically you'll see that. Basically the same thing happens, and as you can see, the colours change. That was just like a funky little feature I added, so every time it wakes up, the colours change, just because I can't decide what colour I prefer. Let me pick a high contrast colour so it's a bit easier to display there. So the way I do that is Watchmaker has a few integrations, and one of them is Tasker. So it's able to display variables that are pushed to it from Tasker. And so this outer segment layer, which I'll find here, is this layer here. And then what I do is I just use that variable to set the segment degrees. So it's just some simple maths, and you'll see here I'm actually rounding it down to the nearest 6 degrees, simply because I don't want to show partial sort of chunks. I want them to all be full, so it looks a bit nicer. I don't particularly like the idea of only lighting up, a partial part of that ring. So it's 6 times maths.floor tweens.tesla, and that's just sort of a hack to make the animation work. So you don't really need to worry about that. And then the T Tesla range, that's the important part there. So that curly brace, T Tesla range, curly brace, that's the actual variable that's coming from Tasker. And then the rest of it is just some simple maths to make it look pretty. So if I go back to, let's see, so now I'll go to Tasker, because now what's important is how that number gets pushed to the watch face. So here, it's all pretty simple. It's just simple maths. You've just got a variable that you can use in any way you like. So you could use it like I've used it here numerically. You can use it to draw segmented circles, or you could do a gauge or anything. You could use it as a rotation. You could use it in any way you like. So if I go to Tasker, I'll show you where that comes from. So if I go back, so here we go. So these are my profiles, and I have down here a every 15-minute profile, and then every 15 minutes it runs this task called Tesla range. And the Tesla range task, the first thing it does is it calls out to a HTTP GET, and it gets this server port, which is I've actually set with a variable just to make my life easier if I ever change the host name of my API. And then it calls this path, which is get hash Tesla state ideal battery range. Now this actual server that it's coming from is actually my home automation system, which already was querying my Tesla because I wanted to do things like graph the level of my battery, because I like to see how it's charging and discharging, and because I charge it from my solar, I like to know that it's charging up when the sun's shining. So my home automation was already querying my Tesla, and this is just sort of like I realized that I was able to hook into it using the watchmaker and Tasker. So it does that get, then it copies the result, which is HTTPD, into the Tesla range variable, and then it pushes the Tesla range variable to the watchmaker using this plugin, which is called WM send variable. So it's like it's an actual plugin that watchmaker has to Tasker. And so anything you send, so when you send it, the name that you send it with, so in this case %Tesla range, is then available on the watch as curly brace T Tesla range, and that first T is to represent Tasker, so that it knows it's a Tasker variable. And then from there it's really easy. You can then integrate it into whatever you like. So I just happened to pick like a watch face that I liked, which is sort of based off a Todd Snyder watch face, or an actual real watch. So it's and then it just added a few extra flourishes. So that actual white animation where that's just because I thought it looked cool. So it's pretty simple. And then just as an example, further example or a bonus, I guess, to show you what how my home automation uses the Tesla data. So here is my home automation system, monitoring my smart meter and stuff. But specifically here, I have my battery. So that's the last 3 days. It's actually got way more history than that. I just happened to display the last 3 days because I find that most interesting. And then I've got a couple of these lines. So this sort of grey dashed line, hopefully it comes out. I'm not sure about the brightness of this screen, but that's sort of my 50% line. This red dotted line is my 90% line, and then the solid red line is basically the capacity of my battery, 75 kilowatts. So I kind of only ever charge to 90% because I don't really need it to charge any further than that. And I normally charge off solar, although you can see here from this rather almost straight line spike, that's where I use the supercharger. Because it's actually overcast and there's not going to be sun for the next couple of days, so I thought I'd grab a charge yesterday. Another interesting thing here is on February the 10th it was I think it was at 40 degrees. We had a bit of a heat wave, and so this weird sort of slow decline here was actually caused by the car hitting 40 degrees and then the air conditioning kicking in. So this was basically the air conditioning constantly keeping the interior of the car cool. Which is a new feature in the when they pushed the 8.0 firmware a couple of weeks back. That's basically the air conditioning kicking in, trying to keep my car cool in the peak of Australian summer. Pretty infrequent. I've never seen it that bad before. It's probably because I didn't put the shades in the front windscreen like I normally do. So the car heated up pretty rapidly, and then it was basically on the entire time trying to keep the car cool. So that's how I get my Tesla range displayed all the time on my Android Wear watch.